Hi, I'm Jordan Davis, and today we're catching up with Cleveland Heights Poet Laureate Ray McNiece. Ray's written 9 poetry books. He's also a musician, an actor, an educator, and he's a 2-time national Grand Slam poetry champion. His new book of haiku is called Breath Burns Away, and he just launched a new online series of poetry workshops for adults. It's good to see you, Ray. You were named the Poet Laureate of Cleveland Heights, and that happened just as the COVID-19 pandemic was arriving.
Yeah, and I'm such a people person. I love being, in group settings. So not being able to have performances and readings and whatnot, that kind of put a damper on the initial joy I had of being named Poet Laureate. We do the ekphrastasy. It's a series of readings by poets on the artwork of the specific exhibit. The gallery there for Heights Arts. We haven't been able to gather in person for that. One of my roles as Poet Laureate is to gather poets together to respond to the art. And we've been videoing them. So you can get them online. You can get actually us standing next to the art and reading the poems. Again, there's nothing like the real thing for me, but in lieu of that, we try to make the best of this situation until we can do otherwise.
Another thing that you've done in Cleveland Heights over the years is the infamous haiku death match.
Yeah, the initial haiku death match I won. I believe I won the initial one, and I've won 2 others since then. Like the slam, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek way of presenting poetry and getting a bigger audience for poetry. I always say if you lose the haiku death match, you have to commit Sudoku.
But haiku actually is part of your daily practice, and it almost
Yeah,
goes beyond
I've been writing haiku since I was a teenager. I was casting about as a young man, as an adolescent, for a spiritual path, and I started following Zen Buddhism. And haiku are all kind of it's different than prayer, but it's a way of meditating and prayer. So I've been writing those, since I was a teenager, and I've participated in the national haiku slam at the National Poetry Slam. The upshot of it is that I have 2 haiku books out. Most recently, Breath Burns Away, which is a collaboration with Tim Lachina, a photographer. Tim and I go out, and I bring my notebook and he brings his camera, and sometimes we'll look at the same thing, and he has a different angle on it than I do, and sometimes it works that I will look at his photographs afterwards and write haiku on them. And a ginkgo, which is a haiku hike, the idea is that haiku are of the present moment. They're written in the present tense and they're the present moment. So they tend not to be emotion recollected in tranquility, as Wordsworth advised. Although Basho, who was the greatest exemplar of haiku, said that haiku should be tested on the tongue 1,000 times. So some people are like, oh, it has to be spontaneous. Well, yeah, it should be spontaneous because it is of the moment. But I think a lot of times we mythologize the process and don't understand the sweat and grit that goes into composing even the smallest of poem like a haiku.
You've embedded yourself as a poet of place, and your place is Cleveland. And one of your books and one of your best known poems is a love song to Cleveland. On the other hand, you have traveled a lot, and you've performed your poetry in Asia and in Europe, and you've toured with Lawrence Ferlinghetti and with Yevgeny Yevtushenko, the famous Russian performance poet. Are there any of those stories now that help you get through this time, or that resonate with you, or that are serving as any inspiration for you?
This place made me, and it's in my blood. But I've traveled all around the world, and during this pandemic, what I've been doing is traveling around the world again through my journals, because I have dozens of poems in my journals that are in rough draft, many of which from my travels in Russia with Yevtushenko. And some of the adventures we had there. And also with Ferlinghetti, I toured with an entourage of beat poets in Italy twice. So I'm going back over my journals now and culling out. I have actually enough poems together for a travel book. There's so many great stories. Yevtushenko was a larger than life character. And just phenomenal experience traveling around from him. But one time we were taking the Aeroflot, the notoriously shaky Russian airlines, from Moscow to Siberia. And as we were waiting in line to board the plane, I'm looking at the tires, for the airplane, and they're bald. I mean, there's just no tread on the tires. And I turned to Yevtushenko and I say, you think it's safe? And he goes, don't worry, Ray, your bones will be mixed with Russian soil. So,
So you went all the way to Siberia?
Yeah, no, his people were Septembrists, rebelling against the Tsar, and his people were exiled to Siberia. So we were there. They opened up his ancestral home. So I went there and we traveled all over. I got drunk with the premier of Siberia. I had a sauna in Lake Baikal where you swig vodka, recite poems, and jump into Lake Baikal, which is the deepest freshwater lake in the world. So it's always just above freezing. It's like 33 degrees. And I forgot they beat you with birch branches to bring the blood to your surface. So all night you're in there drinking vodka, reciting poetry, and getting beat with birch branches. And wow. Yeah, a lot of stories like that,
You have found a way under quarantine to create workshops and continue your poetry mentoring of younger and older poets. How's that going?
Well, I currently have 2 workshops going. I just started one last night, actually. This is kind of an offshoot of the Visible Voice workshop, which Clarence McMahon and I were running for, I don't know, a dozen years maybe, at Visible Voice in Tremont. We just kind of went online. So there are still spots open. I'm trying to limit it to 10 poets because I have 13 poets in the other one. So I decided to do another one. I am doing a program on Langston Hughes's poetry for Hawkins School. And I'm doing some other stuff for Cal that's going to start up.
Yeah, Cal is the Center for Arts Inspired Learning, and that's for young people.
Yes, and that's why, as I was mentioning earlier, the Amanda Gorman poem at the inauguration was, so many of us were so overjoyed with that, the artistry and her presentation. And many of us have been working with youth poets for, over 25 years now. So that was really something. And I got a lot of people commenting about the poem and saying, you must be really proud. And I was, because that's how I've made my living as a poet for the most part, is by teaching. And many of us have been working with performance poetry for, as I said, for about 25 years now. So that was kind of the flower of our efforts. And it was really was something that made us all feel great about the work we've done over the years.
That's great. Thank you, Ray. We've been catching up with Ray McNiece, the current Poet Laureate of Cleveland Heights. Ray's latest book is called Breath Burns Away, and he's just launched a new series of online poetry workshops for adults with rolling enrollment. You'll find contact info at the end of this clip. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you around in Cool Cleveland.
In the beginning was not the word. In the beginning was this blossom of bliss, rippling outward through 2 entwined bodies of light.